Hello, everybody. Welcome to Targeting Winners. We have a very special episode today. We'll be talking about the college football playoffs. It's on top of everybody's mind. We have a special guest today, formerly of the Final Score podcast from, I think, 2016 to 2022, and a proud alum of your MAC champions. So, Craig Campbell, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Thanks, Tim. Hey, it's fun to be here. I've been kind of watching you guys for a little while now. It's a lot of fun. A lot of topics and stuff you guys talk about, and the fun you guys have on the show. It's an honor to be here. It's been a bit. Yeah, you mentioned we had I'd worked on a few different shows. You know, this stuff is so much fun talking about college football and having the discussions of like what we're going to talk about today with college football playoff, and probably dabble in a little bit of my the other school I follow and their whole tumultuous situation. But yeah, I'm so happy to see the Broncos win the MAC for the first time since 2016 with PJ Fleck, and it's nice to have to see some success there. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to today.
Yeah, I was wondering if you heard the news about Michigan last week. I don't know if you've been following.
I don't know who didn't hear
Woo!
that news.
My goodness. Yeah, we have another guest that comes on the show from coacheshotseat.com. His name is Mark Haynes, and we're definitely be doing another show with him once all the dust settles from that and the rest of the coaching carousel. So be on the lookout for this one. Have you heard any names on the short list that interest you for Michigan? Or
Ooh, well, that whole situation to me is soap opera is like the easiest way I think to put it, because you have this saga where it's supposedly, depending on who you listen to, 6 to 8 months ago this was already a story, but it was being brushed under the rug, um, and you hear it pop up, kind of goes away, and then after the Ohio State game it kind of pops up again, and then it goes away again until literally what this about a week ago, where the young lady that was involved with Coach Sharon Moore comes forward. What prompted her to do this after they've been together, quote unquote, together for like 2 years, I think, ever since he really got there. Um, yeah, it's a whole weird turn of events, but the timing of it is also very peculiar. That there's a lot of these big name coaches that were out on the carousel, and now this news comes out, most of your big names that you probably would have taken a shot at if you're Michigan are
they're
already
gone.
accounted for. Yeah, they're already gone.
But that
So
doesn't
now
necessarily mean if college football teaches us anything.
that's true. Yeah, look at Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so now you've got the first wave of the coaching carousels done. So what are you going to do? They waited till signing day was done, which I also thought was really really weird that it happened like right after signing day closed. Um, and now these players get a chance to reopen their recruiting. They get the 15-day window to because of the coaching change. So now you have to figure out, where do you want to go as a program? Who are you going to go with? You kind of want to take your time, but you also kind of can't afford to, because of how all this stuff is put together. So if Michigan handles this poorly, this could probably set the program back at least 2 or 3 years.
Right. Well, I think as far as the recruiting goes, I think Michigan has a certain amount of time to find a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Like the players can't jump now; they got to wait. I think.
They can actually. One
Oh,
of
they can.
the top the top tight end recruit that they were boasting about, he's already been released of his commitment.
Right. Oh, I thought I was referring to like the transfer portal.
Oh yeah, the
Like they
transfer
can't.
portal.
They got so
Correct.
many days or whatever before any of their players can say, "All right, well, we're out," and
Yeah,
whatever. So,
I'm thinking of like the signing day class where
yeah.
they have the opportunity to decommit pretty much right
Hmm.
away. Um, and that's obviously going to hurt a little bit, but yeah, then the transfer portal is going to be really a really big linchpin for the where this program's going to go, especially in the next year to 2 years.
Yeah, that's. I mean, a lot of the players. I don't know with the portal if the recruiting classes mean as much as they used to, because half of these players are going to be in the transfer portal within a year or two anyway. They're going to go somewhere else. So you get a top 10 recruiting class. Well, great. In 2 years, they're all gone. So it's they're going to go somewhere else where they can play or what have you. So actually,
Yeah,
Peter, one of the other
yeah,
hosts
it's
here.
possible.
Oh yeah, I mean that's it's chaotic. They got to fix that, but we're not here to fix that today. But
Right,
PJ
right, right,
Fleck
right.
actually is one of the
But yeah,
top choices of Peter, one of the other hosts on this show. Um, PJ Fleck was his top
my,
choice.
yeah. I've having watched him at Western Michigan and the way that he had a really rough start. I think they had one win his first season, but then by the time the third season came around, they were competing for the conference championship. And then in his last season, they had one of the best offenses in the country. Corey Davis was a top 5 pick. And you go to the Cotton Bowl, you have a chance in there as a very small school. It's not even like a group of 5. Like Western Michigan's not a really big school. But for then him to go to Minnesota, I think it was a great fit for him because if he does go to a place like Michigan, it's not going to be as long of a leash as Minnesota. Like Minnesota, that was a very good character culture fit for the two of them because the expectations for each other are not astronomically high like they would be at Michigan. And he's done well in spurts, but depending on how you want to look at it, it's is it the resources that Minnesota may or may not put in their football team? Is it the type of recruiting um, that happens there? Minnesota hasn't really ever been able to get even to the Big Ten championship game, let alone win it. So that would be my biggest concern. He's a great motivator.
Oh yeah,
He's an
no doubt.
excellent culture guy. That would be my worry about him going to Michigan. Is that is he going to beat the Ohio States? Is he going to beat?
Well, that's the
Is he going to
number
win
one
Big
thing.
Ten?
Never
Yeah,
mind the national championship or the whatever. Can
yeah.
you beat
But I
Ohio
mean,
State?
if the thing is, it's not. It's ultimately. I'm, I'm going to give you a clip here. It's ultimately not that hard to beat Ohio State if you're Michigan, because if Sharon Moore can do it in 2 straight years, with
True.
no team, no offense, because you get into Ryan Day's head and he's soft as tissue paper. So you get into his head and he beats himself up. Um,
True. Well, you can
so
go 3-10 at Michigan if one of those wins is against Ohio State. I think so. I think they'll overlook.
yeah, and the opposite is true too for Ryan Day. There was talks going into that Michigan Ohio State game that if Ryan Day loses again, could he be fired? And we're talking about he just won a national championship last year.
Right, last
And
year.
last year, and they're talking about, well, you lost to Michigan, a couple times in a row where you're going to get fired. I mean, okay, go for it. Have fun. But yeah, I think for if Fleck is, I love Fleck as a coach. I love him as a human being. Um, if if he does go to Michigan, that's going to be the biggest question mark. Is he's never been to a Big Ten championship game. He's coached in some big games, but very rarely have they won them. I don't know what his record is against like top 25 opponents or even top 10 opponents, but I don't imagine it's very good. Um, and that would be the biggest concern. The
Right.
big name that I see come up a lot is Jed Fish from
Yep.
Washington. That one, that's a name I see a lot. I think it's probably the closest connection based on just paying attention to other like outlets and like, that are local in the area. That name is popping up a lot um, because of his ties. He was the offensive coordinator under Jim Harbaugh early in his tenure. It was 2016, I think, is around that time when he started. And they had some decent quarterbacks there, decent offenses. But I think that's probably the top option right now, in my opinion. But I've also seen the name Caleb DeBoer thrown out there too because he was tied to Michigan. He has ties to the Metro Detroit area, and even though he's in the playoff and he's had success at Alabama, it's not to their standard. There's some kind of I've I've kind of heard there's a little bit of a culture disagreement there about their expectations. So 4 losses and 2 or 3 losses this year, that's not their standard. They're very astronomically high, like unattainably high. But when you have Nick Saban for however long, it kind of
Right.
you,
Yeah.
you kind of have that. But DeBoer is another one. I think he probably would be one of my top wish list picks. Him, Jed
That keeps
Fish.
my dream sequence alive. A few weeks ago, there was talk about DeBoer possibly going to Penn State and then have Lane Kiffin go from LSU to Alabama after 1 month. And I would love for that to happen. And Penn State went with the Iowa State coach.
Yep.
So now my dream is back in play. I want this to happen so badly.
That would probably it this move that Lane Kiffin did already kind of turned college football on its head, but that would even more so. Imagine if that happens and then he goes, you know what, LSU, I actually want to go to Bama, and then flips and goes to Bama. So he's gone to 3 different SEC teams in the matter of like 3 months. That would be insane to see how crazy the media cycle would just lose their minds.
Well, that's what's so crazy about all this is like we're talking about the college football playoff. We're 10 minutes in and we haven't even mentioned them yet, and we're still talking about how crazy the coaches are.
Yeah.
Well, way back, college, the college football had their playoff. They had the 14 playoff,
Mm-hmm.
and they said, you know what, Craig, if we go to 12 teams, that'll eliminate all the arguments. There won't be any arguments anymore. So that's, so that hasn't worked out well. I have a little system here that I put in. I'll show it to you if you want to tear it apart.
Yeah.
So here's the first thing I want to do is get rid of the polls. So let's just fix this college football playoff system altogether. My biggest issue is that they don't really measure results. They measure expectations. I think a lot of the people that vote, they just copy and paste the previous year's polls, and it's they put them in for the preseason poll, or they have their own, what is it, geographical bias. Oh well, we'll put Ohio State there number one, then we'll put some other teams, and well, I don't think there's any other teams I can think of. Let's just put some more Big Ten teams in there. Or let's just put some more SEC teams in there. Let's put more, Big 12 in there, whatever, if you're a writer in Oklahoma or something. So I don't know what your thoughts are on the polls. On this slide here, I've got this past year's preseason poll on the left, and on the right, I have the final poll.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you notice anything, especially with the top three.
Oh yeah, I was looking at that little James Madison down there at 19. Getting some love for the little schools.
Yeah.
Um, I would, I understand where the polls come from. Like they've been around for such a long time. You have to figure out who do you determine is the number one team in the country, and then work their way down. I'm a proponent of getting rid of preseason polls because you have nothing to base off of other than the expectations that the media puts on these teams, and no one's played a game yet, and you're basing it off of last year. Well, how many people are returning? What was the coaching staff look like? What do the other teams in that conference look like? And I think that's what I wouldn't even say, it'd be subjectively is what these writers base this stuff off of. So I'd be a proponent of getting rid of preseason polls. Polls in I would say polls serve a purpose, but before the playoff, they had this other system where it only mattered what team you played, and there was no bias because a computer put it together. The rankings, the BCS. I wouldn't say that go back to that. I'm not saying that, but I think there's a good hybrid here somewhere to where you have to use some sort of metric that is putting together maybe the strength of schedule, strength of opponents, and using that as part of the ranking, um, rather than voting from writers. And you have the coaches poll. I really like the coaches poll because the coaches They can understand. They can see if they're watching film that is of other teams other than their own. I like the coaches poll idea. The media poll is the one I think everybody kind of focuses on. That it's this is the one where all the problems are because you have like on the first poll you've got Penn State preseason number 2, and imagine that's the media poll, and we see the season that they had, utter disaster, leading to James Franklin getting fired. So in that respect, I would say I agree with the polls. The funny one is the CFP rankings that they put out, which are completely BS. To me, they're completely BS because look at the Notre Dame and Miami
Right.
situation, right? Where leading up to the selection, they had Notre Dame over Miami, and they could have made that change weeks prior. But then the day of, they flip flopped them because there was no team in between Notre Dame and Miami in which to compare. Now it's a true side by side comparison. I think that that's a load of crap to me because that was just an excuse of, oh, well, we're going to do this because of this. That's where all the bias comes in from the committee, which is, I think, what people are having a hard time with dealing with when it comes to who are the best teams. But I think they should just get rid of the the CFP ranking stuff. They can just get rid of that because no other I mean, anybody that's listening or watching can comment here and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think any other NCAA sport does that outside of just their regular polls. But college football does because they know every Tuesday when they do this ranking, it's just more advertising opportunity. It's just more of what we don't need. Just
Right.
keep it till the end, just keep it till the end. But Um, I'm not
I like
against
what you
polls,
said.
but yeah, I'm not against polls, but I think they got to be weighed with metrics.
Hmm. See, the reason why I like what you said is because I'm 100% against the poll. So I think we're going to
Mhm.
got some sparks here as the show goes on. Uh, with this, program, whatever that I put together of how we decide the playoffs, it doesn't matter what the coaches rank you. It doesn't matter what the media ranks you. It doesn't matter is did you win your conference? Did you
Mhm.
win your division? When I was talking to this, a couple other friends of mine, I just said, look, if you don't play the first Saturday of December, I don't want to hear from you about, oh, we should be in the playoffs. Oh, really? What division did you win? Oh, you didn't. Okay, well, STFU. We'll see you next year. Enjoy. You get to go to the Pop Tarts Bowl, maybe. I mean, what's more fun than the Pop Tarts Bowl or the Mayonnaise Bowl or the Duke's Mayo Bowl? I mean, come on. So enjoy that. Get some extra practice with your team, but you did not play the first Saturday of December. I don't want to hear from you. So, so yeah, we'll get into that later. But the first part of my
Yeah.
model here is there needs to be some realignment.
Yeah.
So obviously, everyone loves the SEC. It's just the toughest conference. Um, I made a couple changes. I basically went back to SEC Classic,
Yep.
got rid of the other. So this is still a very tough
Absolutely.
conference. I mean, Alabama, LSU on one side. You got Georgia. You got Tennessee, Florida. I mean, Vanderbilt's getting better.
Hmm.
Kentucky and South Carolina, maybe not. And you still have Ole Miss on the west side. So this is still a very tough, even without, I took A&M out, Missouri,
Yep.
Oklahoma, and Texas. I took them out. So I don't know if you have any objections to this one. I don't think
No,
this one pretty seems cut and dry.
yeah, I think a lot of we were talking about this before we went live here, and a lot of this makes a lot of sense because it's kind of a little bit of the way it was. Obviously, money talks and a lot of that change is happening for that reason. But in this conversation, we're talking about keeping as balanced and some of the best teams opportunities as possible. And I really like just going to the SEC. Try to keep it as geographical as possible, right? SEC. I think this is a great setup. It's still a really tough conference, like you said. Florida kind of goes up and down with their program, but you still got in the East, you've got Georgia and sometimes Tennessee, sometimes Florida.
South
Um,
Carolina was tough last year. They were a tough
they
out.
were very tough out last year. Yeah, but yeah, I like this.
So,
I like this SEC setup.
okay. Well, we'll keep it peaceful now. Let's just move on. We got your conference here. So leaders and the legends. I like that. I like how the Big Ten did this. Kind of like NHL, kind of like the Norris division and the
Yeah,
Patrick division. Wish they'd bring that back in the NHL. So we have the leaders and the legends. I showed this to you earlier, and your eyebrows went up a couple times. So
it was. Yeah, this is an interesting one because this one's not necessarily geographical, um, but it is set up. I see we've got West Virginia added, Cincinnati added. Um, I mean, I'd probably swap out a Cincinnati with like a Louisville or something. That's a little bit more of a bigger program under this like scenario. But I would think this would depend on how many of these games, these rivalries, are protected. If they have maybe, because I think that's the biggest conversation with this whole setup. Doesn't matter how we do it, right? It's who, when you win the conference, how do you determine to get to that conference championship, and then how do you determine from there? You want to make sure that no team has like a cakewalk. Like for example, when they used to do the Big Ten, like leaders and legends, it was East and West. Well, the West was always Wisconsin because they had no competition. They would play
mhm.
the Illinois, the Indianas, the Purdue's, um, Iowa, and Nebraska. And then the East is loaded with Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, and even Michigan State. 10 years ago when they were decent. So, um, I'm not opposed to this. I would say it would depend on some of the protected games. Because obviously, like Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Michigan State, um,
Well,
some of
Wisconsin
those,
and Minnesota.
Wisconsin, Minnesota.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you'd have to
You
have
can
at
keep
least
all
one.
those trophy games.
Yeah, you'd have to have at
You
least
know,
one protected game of each from each team. But
yeah,
I'm
I'm
not
sure
opposed to it.
Wisconsin, like rivalry weekend, will always be like Wisconsin, Minnesota.
Yeah,
I think Illinois and Northwestern, don't they have a trophy they play for? I think every one of these
they
schools
do.
has a trophy they play for some reason, except for
Yes.
Michigan, Ohio State. They don't need a trophy. That they just got the two
No.
names, and they're just going to go out and kill each other, and that's going to be that.
I
Um,
love I love the I forget which rivalry it is, but it's called Good Old Fashioned Hate. And I was like, that pretty much sums up Michigan Ohio State too. It's an
Good
SEC
old
one.
fashioned.
Is
Is
it
that
Georgia
Pitt
Georgia
and West
Tech?
Virginia? Maybe, or is that,
Oh, maybe it's Pitt, West Virginia. But
or
I was
maybe
thinking it
Oklahoma
was
State? No, that's Bedlam, isn't
I
Oklahoma
was
State,
thinking it was
Oklahoma?
Georgia Tech for some
Good
reason.
old fashioned hate.
Yeah, I think it's Georgia Tech. I only say that because they were just playing Thanksgiving weekend. I think that's where I
Hmm.
picked it up. But
But
yeah,
that applies to Michigan, Ohio State for sure.
yeah,
That
yeah.
I
I
mean,
like the balance of this though. On the leader side, like Indiana, I don't they've had a great season. Cignetti's a fantastic coach.
yeah,
I don't think he's going
unbelievable.
to stay there for much longer. I'm not saying he's leaving after this year, but I don't think he's going to stay there much longer. So you still got the powers of Ohio State, Penn State, and then maybe Wisconsin if they can kind of figure themselves out as a program. Then the other
Mhm.
side, you got Michigan, Iowa, depending if their offense shows up that year or not. Um, but other than that, I mean, Michigan, if they are the traditional Michigan, they don't really have much competition in their division. So that would be the only gripe I would say for this setup. But I like how it's trying to be as balanced as possible.
Well, if PJ Fleck stays at Minnesota, Michigan State can rebound, and Iowa's always going to be Iowa. It seems like they're always going to be
Yeah,
kind of a tough out. So that's kind of balanced. I mean, as much as I could, I like the whole. I mean, I guess I made the leaders division a little too tough for Wisconsin, but what are you going to do? It's
yeah. What are you gonna do, right?
but
Just take Penn State or Ohio State and flop them over to the Legends with
maybe
one
bring
of the
Minnesota back
yeah,
over.
like a Minnesota or maybe a. I was thinking either Iowa, Minnesota, or Northwestern, one of those three Western teams to go in
Hmm.
more with other Western teams, but
I'll concede
uh,
that. We'll get along on this one. We'll sing kumbaya. So we did the SEC, we did the Big
yep.
Ten, and everyone says those are the two powerful, almighty conferences. Look at what I did with the Big 12 and tell me if that holds true.
We saw this. I like this. I The only thing I would change is try to put BYU maybe in that Pac-12 area because that is a up and coming big program and keep them in the West. And I think that would make a really good conference with the traditional Pac-12 plus you're adding BYU in the mix. Um, I like those, but other than that, yeah, I'm trying to think of another setup. I would
I
probably add Colorado.
That's what I was thinking. I was maybe going to put Colorado instead of BYU and move
Yeah, swap
BYU
those.
to because Colorado's been back and forth between the
Yeah,
Pac-12
yeah.
and the Big 12.
But
One
other
thing
than
I love
that,
about
yeah,
this is taking Nebraska, putting it back in the Big 12, rivalry weekend. The biggest game, other than Michigan Ohio State, every time I was a kid, it was always Oklahoma Nebraska. On
yeah,
rivalry weekend, it was like Tom Osborne and uh, Barry Switzer. I almost said
yep.
Billy Tubbs from the basketball team, but I know
Oh,
Barry Switzer. They were always number one against number two, and those two teams. That was a game that everyone tuned in. Like they always had Michigan Ohio State on at noon, and that game was always on at like 3:30 or 7. It was like that was
yeah,
like the game. Everyone nationwide, all the advertising on TV, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Oklahoma. So they stopped that one about 8 years ago, 10 years ago. It's been too long.
yeah,
Even if it's only been 1 year, it's been too long. They got to bring that back. So I'm forcing that on them. They're going to play each other on rivalry weekend, along with that was a bigger game than Alabama, Auburn, Florida State, Florida. You know,
yep.
any other rivalry you can think of other than Michigan, Ohio State. I think that's the one thing the Big Ten can claim over any conference about having like the toughest conference. They got the biggest rivalry.
Hmm.
That Michigan, Ohio State is bigger than Auburn, Alabama. It is. It is because I think that the Michigan, Ohio State is more nationwide. I think you're not going to find.
Yeah,
I haven't seen too many. I can travel. Like we've been to football games in Kentucky. We've been to games in like Indianapolis, all over, and we've seen Ohio State stuff and Michigan. We haven't seen like Auburn. You're not going to find too many Auburn hats, in Texas or wherever, but you might find some Ohio State and Michigan garb people that nationwide where Auburn, Alabama is probably just bigger than anything in Alabama,
yeah.
but it's
Michigan, Ohio State, both of their fan bases and alumni and just fans growing up watching, they travel really well. They spread out really well. But yeah, Nebraska, Oklahoma would be a really fun rivalry to watch get renewed. Texas A&M would really hate to have to see Texas in a division again because they were so
well,
mad about them coming over to the SEC. But I
mhm.
like this setup. I like the traditional Big 12. I think this presents with some really unique matchups. I would say classic matchups, really. But yeah, no, I like the Big 12 setup.
Little side note about the Michigan Ohio State. Peter, when he has to do business in Ohio, he rents a car. He does not drive his own car with Michigan plates into Ohio. He
Smart.
will rent a car. Yeah. So they're just nuts. So let's just move on.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just crazy. Good old fashioned. Hey, that's the perfect. They should steal that name if that's not the name of that rivalry. So I'm on a mission from God. Little Blues Brother reference here. Pac-12
Yep.
getting the band back together. So this is where I was thinking about putting BYU in the South, where Colorado is, and putting Colorado to the Big 12. But
Yeah, for this
basically, Pac-12 Classic. I mean, I didn't
yeah.
really do too much other than with the Colorado. But I like the South. You got Utah and USC. You got Oregon. You got Washington in the North. USC. Utah. Arizona State is up and down. Not too much on the other side. Every once in a while, Stanford gets good for some reason.
Yeah,
If they were,
once in a while.
every once in a while, I don't know what that's all about, but I
It
just
was
don't. I
the
mean, it's just like, oh,
it
that's
was
weird.
it was the Jim Harbaugh effect. All right, I'm gonna stand on that. It was
Yeah,
the Jim Harbaugh
and
effect.
Andrew Luck, and then even
And
after he
Andrew Luck.
left, they were
Yep.
good for a couple years.
Yeah, they had Shaw, and
Yep.
then once Shaw got his recruits in and the powers started shifting, then that was all she wrote for Stanford. But yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, there's not really any other way to slice this up other than what you mentioned already, swapping BYU and Colorado, because you've got all the natural rivalries in each division. Yeah, I've always been a fan of having the Pac-12 or just the Pacific area having their own conference, but not to dive back into it, but you mentioned earlier with the polls and the biases, and that's why in part the Pac-12 has really kind of taken a huge step backwards because all these big programs they are not getting the recognition, the respect that they feel they deserve because of the biases towards the SEC, the Big 10, and at one point the ACC, but now it's all the money, all the revenue. People want to see the SEC matchups, the Big Ten matchups. So that's money talks. That's why those Pacific teams were like, all right, we're gonna go somewhere else where we're gonna get more national recognition time. Because most of the time the regular conference games in the Pac-12 were on at what 10 p.m. Eastern
Mhm.
a lot of the time, and the
And everyone on the
primetime
East
games,
Coast, except for the diehards like us, they're all
yeah,
sleeping. We're up watching, but like the New York
yeah,
Times voter or whatever, they're in
exactly.
bed or they're out at the club partying somewhere. They're not watching college football.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And I think that's a big reason why they decided then to move out of it. But I in this format, I love the setup of having the Pac-12 get back together, and it helps, I think, with presenting more champions. You know what I mean? Like you have more of an opportunity to where the Oregons can still play against other teams on the West rather than having to travel cross country to play against Big Ten teams, you know?
right, right. So, and finally, the conference that I hate the most, uh, being a Florida State fan, I just cannot. These people who run the conference have bungled everything
Yep.
over the past 2 or 3 years. So, halfway through this, I did realize I forgot about UCF. So I just threw them into the ACC because nobody cares about the ACC. So
Oh, I
I
thought you were
threw
going
them
to say
in.
UCF. I was like, yeah, most people forgot about UCF too.
Well, yeah, true. So they'll be like, hey, how'd they get there? So they can
I'm
do
just,
whatever they want. I got them in the coastal. If they want to alternate odd number of years, go to the Atlantic, even number of years to the coastal, move them back and forth. I don't care what they do. But
yeah,
we got an odd number of
and I'm just,
teams.
yeah, and I'm
Go
just
ahead.
kidding to the UCF fans. I've been to some of their sporting events. They have a tremendous atmosphere. They're a lot of fun to go,
It does.
but
We went
it's just
this
easy to
year.
pick on them.
Darren and Peter and I, we went to the bounce house and we saw the West
Yeah,
Virginia game. And yeah, it was a fun time. They have student sections in each end zone, so it's not like just one.
I like that. That's
You know,
cool.
I like that idea. So no matter which, if it gets to an overtime, no matter which way they want to go, the other team they're going to go into a student section. That's
Yeah,
going to be allowed for them. So yeah, I love UCF's definitely 5 stars. Highly recommend. Go to UCF for a football game. It's going to be a good time.
yeah.
But yeah, they're
This would
here. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, no, say this setup here for the ACC is ACC has always been a really weird conference to me because they're like, yeah, we're the Atlantic Coast, and then we're gonna go get Louisville and
Syracuse.
Pitt and West Virginia, and we're gonna get these teams that are not near the coast. Um, and then they make weird decisions like their conference alignment when they had uh, what was it a couple years ago? They had some really weird setups. Um, but I don't know how you would actually competitively set up the ACC. Which is why when we were talking earlier, I had a scenario where basically you bring the Big East back, where you bring them up in as their own little conference, um, and then that way you have more of the traditional ACC teams, um, throwing them in together. But the only swap I would make here would be the Louisville Cincinnati that we mentioned earlier. I think just as a program and stuff for the Big Ten, they probably want to take Louisville over Cincinnati.
Well, you guys
Maybe
can't have everything. Okay, we got to have the ACC has to have at least a couple good teams, even though this is the trash heap of college football.
yeah.
They got to have something. So, other than Miami, I
Hey,
mean,
they got Duke.
God, I hate
Okay, they
Miami.
got ACC champion Duke. All right,
Yes,
7-5 Duke.
I mean, I want to find out whoever came up with that tiebreaker system and just punch them right in the face. Like, I
Yeah,
mean,
to the fact to leave out Miami, um, to leave out Miami and then add in Duke because the tiebreaker, it really that killed the ACC. In reality, that killed the ACC's chances of making the playoff altogether. Um, and it's throwing another huge wrench into this whole conversation, which is why we're having this discussion today.
yeah, that's the only good thing is like a lot of the shows like ESPN. That's the only good thing about this whole playoff thing is like the Get Up and Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless. They have something to rant about for for a good hour when they're not talking about LeBron James and the NFL. So it's like it gives them another hour of content. I guess
Yeah.
there's no such thing as bad publicity, but this is bad publicity. I mean, whatever the
Oh
biggest
yeah.
laughing stock in sports was, the ACC is like, hold my beer. We can do this. We're going to put
We
Duke
can do this.
on
Oh man. It's a
the
nice
fifth
little comeback story
tiebreaker.
for Manny Diaz though. It's a nice little comeback story for Manny Diaz.
Yeah, he went to Miami. I hate Miami, but I'll give him this. That turnover chain was a pretty cool idea. Other than
Yeah.
that, he can go wherever he wants. But they also botched bringing Virginia Tech and Miami into the ACC way back in the beginning. I talked about this with Darren, and they said, well, we'll put Miami in the Coastal. That way, we get 2 Florida State Miami games a year because they play every year already. And then in the championship game, they'll play each other again, so we get more money. When has that happened? It's been
Right.
20 some years now, and it's never happened because they don't factor in that, hey, Florida State's going to suck. Oh, Miami's going to suck sometimes. There's going to be years when they both suck, and we're going to end up with Clemson and Wake Forest or whatever in the.
Yeah.
What was it a couple years ago? Was it like Wake Forest and Georgia Tech? Was like
Yeah. It was
it's
some I don't remember, but yeah, it was something where it's two teams that name recognition wise, most people aren't gonna go tune into that game.
yeah, I mean, which is fine. I mean, look, if it ends up being Georgia Tech against Wake Forest and Wake Forest is 9-1, they beat Florida State, they beat Clemson, they beat Louisville, maybe they have a win against a lower level SEC or Big Ten team, and maybe they beat, they play an SEC team close. And the same thing on the other side, and they're good teams, then fine. But you got a 5-loss, you got a team with 5 losses, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's. Do you have anything else? Because if we keep talking about this, I'm going to have a stroke or something. I just would rather move on and not talk about the ACC.
Yeah, no, I'd like to talk about your playoff format here. See how you're gonna improve it.
Well, this is how I'm going to improve it. 12 teams gave us more arguments, along with more teams. That's the only thing that you can definitively say. Going from 4 to 12 gave us more teams. That's the only thing because 12 is greater than 4. But I'm cutting it back to 8. So obviously, if you look at the biggest thing is this, I only have 1 year to go off, but this is
Mhm.
last year's first round. So you got 9, 10, 11, and 12. I would make the argument that none of those 4 teams should have been in the playoffs last year anyway. I don't know if you have any. I
No,
mean,
I
the Notre
mean,
Dame game was not as close as that score because
yeah,
I think it was 27. Wasn't it 27-3 with like 10 minutes left or something? And they scored a touchdown
Indiana,
with like 3 minutes
yeah,
left.
Indiana did score late to make it closer. But yeah, all those first round games, it's nice. And that's where we get into the conversation of like with college basketball. We like to see the Cinderellas. We like to see those teams like this year, the Tulanes, the James Madisons getting in. It's a great story. But at the end of the day, like I really do hope that they show up and make them close games or even win because it will help perpetuate, the idea that more teams could have an opportunity. However, the reality is probably something similar to this, where the first round games are going to be maybe some blowouts. And I think that's why maybe the committee made some of the weird rematch decisions that they made, because they're hoping for it to be closer games and they're wanting the marquee matchups. Again, plays into that bias, but I would agree that last year I thought the Tennessee Ohio State game was going to go much differently than it did. I was pretty disappointed with Tennessee's performance, but um,
I didn't think
yeah, and
so. I remember kicking myself because I was going to play all four home teams in a parlay and just all
I
four teams
think
to cover, and all four teams did cover. And I remember kicking myself. I just didn't think any of these
yeah,
games were going to be close.
I did last year, but the only one I got wrong was Tennessee. Yeah, the
Yeah,
only one I got wrong was Tennessee because I thought I was like, oh yeah, they can. I think I just did money line, but I was like, yeah, they can. I think they can win because their offense, the way that was. No, I was dead wrong.
yeah, I didn't see any of these games. The closest one, the one that surprised me was Clemson. I thought Clemson was going to get blown out by more than
Yeah.
that. I was expecting like 38-14 or something like that, not 38-24. So, but yeah, I mean, I may do that again this. Well, I don't want to jinx it because I would love for Miami to lose. I really want them to lose. I was really rooting for them to get screwed. It would have been so much fun. But Notre Dame getting screwed too is also fun, so we can always laugh at them. So,
Yeah, that
but yeah.
does make it funny. Yeah.
So yeah, in closing on this, I tell Pete and Darren what Bobby Bowden used to say when they went to the 4-team playoff is once you have 1 and 2, who cares about 3 and 4? But once you have the top 8, I mean, just stop. You know, so we'll move into we have our 8 teams, and here when we have the automatic bids. Now I got the band back together with the Pac-12. So you win your conference championship game, and you get an automatic bid. Any questions on that? So,
Um,
I
I
mean,
I like the idea of the automatic bid. I think it would depend on then just kind of getting back to the discussion of what's going to be your criteria to get the conference championship set up, right?
you win your
Uh, the,
division.
yeah, right. And then you've got to figure out, okay, well, what's going to make it the best possible setup? Because, say, for instance, if you have a division where maybe there's not much of resistance, one team and then the rest, and they have an easy path, whereas the other one is really loaded, like the way the Big Ten used to be, where it was Wisconsin and nobody, and then the other side was Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State. And that's the only issue that I could potentially see there with having the division set up. But I like the automatic bid um, to get in, and that will bring a little bit more of gravity to making the conference championship game. Whereas this year, you had BYU, Texas Tech, where it's, well, if BYU wins, they're both in. But if Texas Tech wins, maybe BYU gets in, and then BYU scores one touchdown first quarter. They don't score again, and now they're out.
Right. Well,
But
my
yeah, I like
argument
it.
to that would be like if you have one division with one team that separates itself, that'll take care of itself in the championship game. So if you have the Eastern Division, say, Michigan and every other team sucks in their division, they win that division, they go to the Big Ten title game to play, Indiana, Ohio State, or whoever I have in there. Once they play that game, if they win, well, okay, well, now they beat a good team. If they
Yeah,
lose, well, then they were frauds all along, but they also eliminated everyone on their side. And the leader division, that
right.
they get the automatic bid. So I think that takes care of itself.
It does to
Um,
an extent. I think the other big pushback on that would have been, I would say, for a few years, the SEC, where you had maybe what, four elite teams spread out in that whole conference, and they're beating each other up, and then you've got two very good teams in the conference championship, and then in one of the divisions you have another like top five type of team. Um, that maybe they don't make it, right? So, but the point I see that you make is that you've you didn't win that matchup to get in the conference championship. You need to win that game to get into your conference championship. So
Let's pull back
I
up.
like that's where you have it set up to where the auto bid brings a little bit more gravity to the championship game.
Right. Well, I'm looking. I pulled back up the SEC slide here. So, like, yeah, say so. You're saying like maybe if Alabama and say like LSU was ranked like eighth or
Yeah,
whatever,
you had
and
I don't remember was there a year where it was LSU, Bama, and Auburn that were really good, or maybe I'm thinking of Bama, LSU,
well,
Georgia,
again
obviously.
with this, it kind of sorts itself out. Like, Alabama is going to play LSU. They're going to play Auburn, obviously, but they're all going to play each other. They're all in the same
Mhm.
division. So, like, I always hear teams are like, well, we got to beat Michigan. We got to beat Ohio State. We got to beat Oregon or whoever. Like, every team in college football, they have a team that they have to beat.
Mhm.
Like even FSU, well, they got to beat Clemson. When Clemson was winning, they had Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson and all that. Okay, well, we have to beat Clemson. That sucks for us, but we know what we have to do. And if we don't beat
Yeah.
Clemson, we should shut up and go home. You're not going to play for
Yeah.
the ACC championship. There's no 5-team tiebreaker that's going to get us in if we lose to Clemson. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So we have to beat
Yeah.
Clemson. I suggest we do that. If we don't, boo-hoo, we'll be in the Pop-Tart Bowl. Hey, there we go. Or the Citrus Bowl or whatever bowl in Florida that they can get the most money by having Florida State in. I don't know what conferences go to the Gator Bowl or whatever, but I think it's the Big 12 goes to the Gator Bowl. That Big
I think
12
the Gator
SEC.
Bowl is I think it's Big Ten SEC because I think it's
Big 10, yeah.
this year
Yeah, because
it's
Maryland was in it a little bit ago.
yeah, it's Missouri and somebody else
Yeah.
in the Gator Bowl. I don't
So,
remember off the top of
all
my
right.
head,
And now
but
this is the part that everyone's going to like. We got our 5 automatic bids, and now we finally get to have the committee because, we can't do anything without a committee. Mike Leach, the late, great Mike Leach, did a great rant about the committee. I don't know how many years ago it was, but what my goal here was to take as much of the human element out of it as possible with the bias and
mm,
everything. So, as stated here, the runners up of the Power Five Conference Championship games will be given consideration for the playoffs, along with Group of Five Conference Championship games or championship teams that have beaten at least one team from the Power Five. So, my dog does not like that idea at all.
yeah,
So my
I
dog's
could tell.
arguing with me. So she's
Dog's
pissed.
trying to
But
argue.
yes.
Yeah,
Um, so I
I
know
like I
how.
like the cri yeah, I like the criteria of a group of five. You have to have at least one win, not just a schedule, a win
A
against a
win.
Power Five, yeah, team. That will force the the thing that may get run into. Again, this is the human element getting brought back in here. Those teams are going to want to schedule those Power Fives, but Power Fives are going to go, no, that's a lose lose situation for us. We don't want to schedule them. We want to do what Bama does and schedule the Citadel, 4 games a year, so we can win 55-0 and then get the committee to, look at our style points. Um, but I like the idea. To have to, you're forcing teams to have to maybe strengthen their schedule a little bit. And I think you mentioned taking the human element out of it. I think that's probably the biggest conversation about all this talk about how do you fix the college football playoff. Well, before that, we had a system that computers did everything, and it was based on your strength of schedule. There's a bunch of different criteria that did it. Um, Not too long ago, the BCS, and everyone hated it because it's like, oh, we need a committee. We want it to be like college basketball. We want to look at Division 2 football playoffs. That's the way we want it. So they did. And now where we're sitting is we're having these conversations about there's too much bias. the picks are they're really weird where um they're like, well, we picked this team instead of this team because of this. And I love how Reese Davis was calling out the committee head. I forget his name, but he was calling him out on the broadcast about, well, wait, you guys say this, but then you made this decision. Like, I'm not like trying to come at you about it, but explain it. Why? And his explanation was paper thin. Like it didn't make any sense. So now people are talking about we need some metrics. We need this. So why not marry the two together? Okay? Figure out what metrics that you need to understand what are the best teams in college football. And then we can figure out like, okay, well, based on these criteria that in this situation we've got set up, that's how people are going to get ranked. So you do have the committee, they have much less, I guess, power in this case, and
That was the
putting some
goal.
sort of metrics in it, right? But it's finding out the definition of what do we want, right? And I think that's the conversation that really needs to be had about the playoff in general. Because I like the idea of the playoff. Um, but yeah, I agree. They need to have some sort of system that marries the old BCS system, which was brought together because before that it was just the voters who was the top two AP teams got the champ. Like there was no college championship game. It was just
They've
bowl
had
games all
ties
got
too.
played. Yeah, you had ties. And then is well, look at the 97 season, right? You had Nebraska and you had Michigan, co-champions.
Hmm.
But Nebraska gets it because it's Tom Osborne's last year. Yes, they're a good team, but Michigan was one of far and away the best teams that year, and you have co-champions. So the whole string of events here from what's happened 20, 30 years ago leads us to where we're at now. So how do we find a way to make all those work together?
Also, don't forget, I think Washington and Georgia Tech split a title in 91, maybe 92, somewhere back there.
I think 91. Yeah.
91. That's just so weird. But what the
Yeah.
main goal is, dog is still arguing with me. But, you know, I think with all the problems you said that they had with the committee and the metrics, this limits it. What I like is that it handcuffs them a little bit. It's like they can't go off the reservation and be like, well, we're going to pick this team that finished, third in the Big Ten leaders division and put them in because we think they're better than these teams. It's
Hmm.
more merit based. Uh, I don't think teams will miss out on, or they'll schedule, I don't think they'll avoid scheduling some of these teams. I think you'll still have your Texas Ohio State games because that's not going to affect their standings, you know, or and if you get a group of five, I mean, if you can't beat a group of five, then you have bigger problems than worrying about whether the committee is going to select you for the playoff or not. I think. I mean, you'll see more. I think of the Power Five teams, more like the mid-level Power Fives, maybe schedule the group of fives. But again, they're going to win. That's why I have that. You have to beat them.
Hmm.
You have to beat a Power Five team to get in because even a mid-level team or a lower-level Power Five team, they're going to have 2 or 3 wins against other Power Five teams. So you've at least beaten a team that shows that they can beat teams, and just to limit the selections. Then you're not really talking about, well, you beat this team by 30 and they only beat them by 20, and whatever. You all won your division or won your conference championship, and these, you can pick. So there's what, 10 teams theoretically that they could pick from. So I brought up on this one again. I took some liberties because I recreated the Pac-12 and I unmoronified the ACC. So I put, Miami. They would have played Louisville if they had the 2 divisions. And Oregon would have played, going by just from their win-loss records, they would have played Utah in the Pac-12 title. Since
Hmm.
Oregon is in the playoff, I just had them winning it. And since Miami is in, I just had them, as much as I hate to do it, winning a rematch against Louisville. And but they're still not back because they haven't won the ACC officially. Only in my
Officially,
little
yeah, in real life
fantasy.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as much as I hate to give it to them, they would not let Louisville beat them twice in 1 year. Um, so you got Georgia, Indiana, Oregon, Texas Tech, and Miami. Those are the five automatic bids, and the committee can choose from Alabama, Oklahoma, Louisville, Michigan, Utah, Tulane, and James Madison for the final three. Now, I already have Alabama and Oklahoma. I put them in because they're already in this year's. So, Louisville, Michigan, Utah, Tulane, and James Madison for the final spot. You have one spot, they can pick one of these five. So it kind of limits what they can do. Um, notice Ohio State's not there because they
Yeah, I
didn't,
was gonna
according
say
to this,
I like the little
you know,
bias here.
well, it's not the bias. It's they're in this model. They're in the same division with Indiana, and Indiana
Yeah.
beat them in the conference championship. I'm going to assume they could have beat them in the regular season. They would have won that division. They would have been in a championship game. I'm just assuming they would have beaten Michigan because going by the records, I think Michigan would have been in the championship game against Indiana. So, what are those? Which one of those five teams would you pick, Craig?
Oh man, I don't know.
Gee, think long and
Yeah,
hard.
I would think very long and hard about that one. Um, of course, I've got to go Michigan here.
Well, of
I got
course.
to put them in.
So, well, rest assured, I did that too. Just going by what they did. Now, with 8 teams, we get rid of the first round buys. Everybody's arguing about, oh, this team should get a buy, this team shouldn't. So, we're going to let the committee pick the 3 teams that don't get the automatic bids, and we're going to let the committee seed them. And then that's their power. Other than that, then it's all up to the players on the field. So, this is my makeshift. I try to, you know, live in the mind of the committee. I have Georgia. I have them ranking Georgia number 1, playing Michigan. Indiana 2, playing Alabama, which is 7. Texas Tech 3, playing Oklahoma, which is 6. And Oregon 4, playing Miami, who is 5. Questions, comments, or concerns, arguments on that half?
No, I understand the move to 8. To have the bowl, obviously the bowl committees. There's so much money involved in college football that it'd be very difficult to move away from getting away from these bowls and having some sense of meaning to them. So yeah, and I understand how that setup would go. These would be some really intriguing matchups. You'd have
I
uh,
think, yeah.
some rematches here, but those are not done by a committee. So I think that's the biggest difference there.
Right. I try to do it. Usually the Rose Bowl always had like the Pac-12 and the Big Ten. So I just had one of them in there. I couldn't see putting a 2 seed playing a 4 seed in the Rose Bowl. So I have the added bonus of making Miami fly across the country instead of playing in a bowl game in their backyard. So there's that. So my own little bias, I guess. See, the bias is everywhere, Craig.
Yeah,
Even
I see that.
when I'm trying to fix everything, I can try to mess it up a little bit. But I use the 6 major bowl games. So like Georgia, since they're the 1 seed, they're in the Peach Bowl, and you could rotate these around. Like next
Yep.
year, the Final Four could be in the Rose Bowl and the Cotton Bowl or the Fiesta Bowl or however you want to do it. So I just pick these, try to keep it geographically a little, for the higher seed teams. So you got Oregon, not going to make them fly to Miami, being one of the top 4 seeds. So I have them play in the Rose Bowl because it's right there. If they were a 6 seed, maybe have them go, have them in the Cotton Bowl, playing Texas Tech or whatever. So, Orange Bowl, Indiana, Alabama, that'd be a good matchup. I think. Would we get that in the second round? I'm trying to figure the bracket in my head here, but yeah, this is basically my outline. This is what we would have ended up with in my perfect world for college football. Um, any anything to change there?
I think
You're
there's
just
two ways.
working
I think
like,
there's two
oh,
ways you
you
can go
hate
about
this.
it. No, 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 no. I like the setup forcing teams to play against one another in the division setup. Um, I've thought about this a lot for the over the week, and I don't have it all like mapped out, written down because it's just there's a lot of intricacies to go into it, but I'm not opposed to going to more of a college basketball format where there's no divisions. You schedule like you still want to make sure that um, you want to try to get the opportunity to schedule. You have protected games that you want to keep, but go to
Right.
more of a college basketball format where you still have a conference championship game and it does carry weight and gravity. Um, but using the metrics of strength of schedule and all these different things, but that would take more it would take some out of the program's hands to do their own scheduling, and you'd have to basically have the conferences put together of like kind of how the NFL does style, where if you were a good team last year, you're not going to play, you're not going to pick your own teams and play. Um, you're not going to play Ferris State. You're not going to play Saginaw Valley State. You're not going to play like Florida A&M every year. You're gonna
Right.
if
Right.
you're a good team, you're playing against other good teams, and have some sort of a weighting system there, and then you have 10 conferences, right? You win your conference championship, you're in the playoff. 10 of them. Do it.
Oh,
Rip it.
you brought
But
something up earlier. There would be a fun way to bring back the Big East.
yes. And that would be the thought process is you could go to either whoops, sorry. You would go to either 16 or 32 teams. I'd probably keep it at 16, but if you have 10 or if you really wanted to be like, well, the Sun Belt doesn't deserve a team. This one doesn't deserve a team. Then make it 8. Like half the field would be conference champions and you do the power 4, power 5, and then the next 3 highest ranked group of group of 5 teams, based on those metrics: strength of schedule, win loss record. If you want to do like if you want to do point differential, I guess I'm not a huge fan of that being a tiebreaker metric, for obvious reasons, because then you have teams like, again, I'm going to throw Alabama under the bus. They schedule the Citadel almost every year, at least once or twice, and then they destroy them. But I would do something like 16 and do 8 guaranteed bids, and then the rest is all based off of your those metrics: your win loss record, your strength of schedule. If you made the conference championship game, which would I would probably do, it's a similar style to how you would have it set up, to where you have to you can't be a 7-5 Duke and make the conference championship game. It's just the best records get into the conference championship game, and then you have more weight to it. So if you make it, you're not guaranteed in, but you're probably going to have a better shot at getting in. So I'd probably do it slightly different, to where I get rid of divisions, um, 16 teams, at least 8 of those 10 conferences get guaranteed bids. So the Power 5. And then, yeah, I'd bring back like the Big East and stuff and just all chaos. But I feel like it would work out because you're going to more of that college basketball style. Well, now you have those, like, think of Gonzaga, right?
Hmm.
Gonzaga, when they were coming up, they made the tournament every year. They were in a little conference, but their program would not have the same type of essence as it does now if they didn't have that opportunity 20 years ago. You know what I mean? So
Right.
like Gonzaga was that team that would they were the talk of college basketball for a while because they play in the West Coast Conference. Outside of Santa Clara, they really didn't play anybody else, and they would win their conference championship. They make it in. Maybe they make it to the second round, but they get in, and now you got that consistency. And I like to think of other teams in a football scenario. Look at Appalachian State. Look at James Madison. Those teams were in the FCS, and they were winning those championships and getting to the playoffs, and they build their brand that way. That's a way you can give the opportunity to these smaller teams to be able to build up their prestige. Whereas
Hmm.
right now, the way it's set up, that's why the alignment's happening the way it is, because it's very top heavy, and the smaller schools in like the Pac-12 and the Oregon States, the Washington States, they're all getting left in the dust because they don't have the big name recognition like the others do. So how do you fix that? Is you make geographical conferences. Of course, this is all taking out the reality of the money aspect and all that, but just in a bubble. Make it the 10 different conferences. Turn the American back into the Big East, basically, and then get rid of divisions. The top two conference teams get the conference championship. The winner gets an automatic bid if you're in a Power Five, and then that way there's no first round buys either, and you can still utilize the
Hmm.
bowl games, but now you can kind of utilize more of them to host the first round games, maybe if you really want to use the bowls. But I like how they're using campus first round campus games, because I think that's a bigger benefit, in my opinion, for those teams, because those atmospheres, it's not a those atmospheres are electric. But if you want to make it a completely neutral site, then go kind of closer to the route that college basketball does it, um, without going, 64, 68 teams.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, we're gonna have to. You're gonna have to put together your own model and come back on, because the way I'm looking at, I know like you're talking about like the basketball tournament, and you can have your Cinderellas there. Like
Yep.
you have your Davidson when they had Steph Curry that one year they made a run. My only concern would be like you can have your group of five team like that great quarterback, but you're going to have like a Miles Garrett type on the other side coming at them. And in football,
Yeah.
I just don't know if that's necessarily. Um,
Well, think of it. I would say think about it this way, right? You have those teams like it was Boise State, right? Boise State, Penn State. Was
mhm.
that was last year? The
Penn State
score
played
didn't turn out.
SMU last year.
I was thinking 2 years ago. Then
Yeah, it was 2 years. It's
yeah,
been a bit.
yeah, it's been a bit. But yeah, I would think of you have that opportunity, right? But that's I think that's the idea of the college postseason, is you have these stars like in that type of a format, or even if in an slightly expanded playoff, you would have the opportunity for a team like Vanderbilt to potentially get in. Like those types of storied teams would get in. Um, you would have, I think you'd have a little bit of opportunity, but then at the end of the day, just like in college basketball, you'll have some Cinderella runs, but the best teams are going to end up in the championship or in the final four, or I think that's ultimately how it would shake out. Um, but in a vacuum, we can't ever find the best teams possible, because everybody has different ideas of what the best means. And
Right.
so
That's
then you have
kind
to
of like I
figure
want to
out,
do it. I love my way. It's like, hey, they played on the field. This is what happened.
yeah,
There you go.
it's that's
So,
then that's the thing. You got to figure out what's the objective here. Is it to find the best teams, or is it to create the best amount of like possible like stories, like storyline type of stuff? And I think that's the college basketball route. I like how they, to an extent, I like how they do that, because they do have the committee that picks things, but you have the RPI indexes. You have those indexes that help rank certain teams based on those metrics we're talking about, right? So
right.
I like the format in which it could go. I could even take We could even take that format that you have, abolish the divisions, and just put it up to 16 using the same criteria, and just do like you could still work that. But I like taking the power away from the biases of the committee, which, so we don't get this kind of stuff right now, and make it a little bit more objective, right? You got to go out and beat teams to get your conference championship game, and you got to schedule teams if you're a smaller school to beat them to get a chance to get in. You got to prove yourself.
Right. Wow. Yeah, you definitely have to come back. You got to put your own model together.
I'll
But I'll be
work on
back
it.
on. We're actually over an hour, so we're past our hour bedtime, if you will. I know my Rams and your Lions are playing today, so we have to get in there
They're
and
starting
play
very
that.
soon. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to cut it off there. Please let us know in the comment section what you like, what you don't like about it. Thank you for listening. Also, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel and leave us a review on Spotify, and leave your comments for who you think or who you're rooting for and who you'd like to see coach Michigan. So from Final Score, Craig, thanks again for joining us. I hope to have you back on soon, and we will see you next week with some more bowl picks. Take care, everybody.